Okay, so welcome back to another Bitwig tutorial, and in this one we need to talk about the Beat LFO and the LFO. So you have three LFOs, you have three modulators. Now I know that this is a bit basic, but maybe you already know how they work because you're being here, using Bitwig, but maybe you don't. So I'm recording a new section just to talk about these ones because they are very similar, but they can do different things. There are differences. So if you go to the modulators right here, let me just close this. Let me just show you. I have a synth right now, and I'm going to be playing one note on this example. I'm going to show you different examples. So on this one, I'm just playing one single note, right? And I have a little bit of reverb. All right, simple enough. So I'm going to go there. And if you type LFO, you pretty much have three types of LFO. You have all the ones, but the one that says LFO. You have the LFO, the Beat LFO, and the classic LFO. So the LFO and the Beat LFO are kind of a siblings. They're very similar, but they can do different things. And then you have the classic LFO, which is a bit more complete. And I'm going to do a whole section with this one because you can go crazy. So I'm going to bring the LFO, which is this one. And then you have the other one, which is the Beat LFO. So LFO, and it's the Beat LFO. Now, as the word right here, it says it's a Beat LFO. It's going to pretty much be in sync of your, with your tempo. And the other one, it will do something else, and both have different options. Notice that they have different things going on right here. Let me just put it right there. So if I select them both, the Beat LFO can do pretty much what this is doing. It's, they share some of the options, but, they have different things. So the Beat LFO is a bit more simpler. It's the easiest of them all. And I'm going to start with this one. So a beat, of course, is going to be in sync with your DAW. So pretty much what you can do with this one, with an LFO, is a low frequency oscillator. It's just going to modulate something, and whatever you select, or whatever you map it to. And the motion, how it's going to move it, is going to be right here. Here's the motion. And how fast it's going is going to show right here on this indicator. So let's say that on this synthesizer, when we play that note, I want to provide a little bit of movement. So I'm going to go and do something like that. I'm going to go and move the filter because it's something very easy to hear and identify. So the Beat LFO right from the start is going to be in sync with your tempo, with your song. So if I do the metronome, notice it's in sync. And that is one of the main differences that you get from this one. On this one, you can go crazy right here. You have a lot of options. And on this one, you just get the beat, you synchronize to your beat, and you can offset it, or you can, go faster or go slower. That's it. You cannot do anything else. So, like I said before, let's say I want to go and kind of offset it. And I want to go faster. So I'm going to go faster. Now notice as I go faster, this waveform changes a little bit. It's not going to be the same. Notice that some parts get a peak and some other ones are just very low. And it's because when you're kind of in between values, you're going to get something like that. Whenever you reach, a whole number, which is like 1, all the peaks are going to be the same. And the same thing if you go faster. Notice that you get a different waveform. And this is going to impact whatever motion that you're doing right here because it's going to do this. All right, that's the main point. As you get closer to number 2, they are all the same and you're going faster. And if you go right there, you're going to go in 30 seconds. So it's super fast. Same thing the other way. You can go slower and, really slow. Now, another thing that the Beat LFO can do that this one cannot, it can sync with a groove. So if you're playing something and you have shuffle enabled, you have something like that, it's going to be following, and notice that it is doing it right now. I'm going to turn it off, and if I enable shuffle, it's just shuffling. It's just, moving, just kind of moving, following that shuffle mode. I'm going to disable the metronome because I hate it. Okay, so then you have this knob, and this one is a shared knob with this one, just like this one. But again, this one works a little bit different. So what you can do, notice that you have a triangle. Whenever it's at the middle position, you get a triangle. Let me just turn the shuffle off. So if you move to the right, you're going to be turning the triangle into a saw. And notice it has a very different different sound. It starts very, you know, on a higher point and then ramps down and it goes over and over again. So if you go to the other side, you're going to have just the opposite. It's going to ramp up. It's going to start down, go up, and then restart. Of course, you can go in betweens, but at the center, you will always get a triangle. So what if you want something else, right? What if you want to modify this? You get your triangle right here, but maybe you want to sine wave. So this is going to be the option to do it. If I go all the way to the sine wave, you're going to get this motion. You're not going to getting a triangle anymore. You're just getting a sine wave. And that's the motion. Now, back to the beginning, you're getting a triangle. As well, since we get a triangle, what you can do a little bit of kind of a folding to that triangle, and you're going to get that kind of a bracket motion. Now, of course, when you start mixing and blending and, you know, just moving the knobs, it's just going to get really, you know, unusual kind of waveforms or LFOs, which is super cool because the sound changes, right? All right, so let's go back to the friendly triangle. So right here at the bottom, you get the kind of the blend control. This is how much you can do. So if I go down, notice that the motion is kind of very small. We are not doing a lot. So this is kind of the blend control, or how much do I want from this LFO. If I go up, it's just going up and down very hard. And if I go down, nothing happens. Now, one thing that you need to notice is that the motion, and notice that we have an arrow right here. Can you see this arrow? So this arrow pretty much is at the middle of this square. So this means, well, actually doesn't mean, but you know, it's just kind of in a perfect position. Notice that the waveform starts from one place, from the middle of the square, and then goes up. And this one, the motion starts from right here, this zero point of the cutoff, and then goes up and down. But it's not going to the other side, right? How weird. Well, this is because of the polarity. Right now, this one is just a positive. It's not negative, and it's not positive and negative. That's why you get this sign right here. If you click it, notice that the waveform is going to change. You have the zero crossing point, but it goes down and it goes up. But now your modulation is going to go up and down. So it's a very different movement. Now, of course, we are doing a lot. Maybe I could do a little bit less and get some just a better sound. Right, it's pretty simple, right? Just pretty simple stuff. Now, then you get this control, which is going to be the offset. And notice that the beat LFO is just very, very, very simple, very straightforward. And this is, at the end of the day, maybe the one that you're going to use the most, because it's very simple to use and gets the job done quickly. So, right now, we can offset it. Right now, again, it's some beat, it's just following the DAW, right? It's right on tempo. But we can offset it just a little bit. And notice that when I offset it, and I do the metronome, it's just not on time. It's just kind of a behind. And if I do it the other way, maybe something like that, notice it's not in time. And maybe if we do something like this, it's a bit more obvious. If I go back to the center, it's right on the metronome, right? So that's the beat LFO. So this one is the kind of the easiest and the more simple LFO of, you know, all the modulators on Bitwig. Now then you get the other one, and this one is a little bit different, but it's also a little bit more complete. So on this one, what you can do, you can go and select like this, the time, but you can go, you know, very specific ways. And right now I'm going to do the same example. I'm going to remove the beat LFO, and I'm going to do this LFO, and I'm going to map it to this one. Now, by default, notice that it's bipolar. So you can disable by clicking here, and it's just going to go one way instead of going both ways. Now, of course, right here, the main control, and by default, it's hertz. So if you go up, it's going to go faster. And, you know, I'm going to go and do play. Notice it's very slow. But if you go up on hertz, it's going to go much faster. If you go slow, it's going to go super slow. Now, of course, you can select different timings. And right now, if you, for example, select 16 note or maybe an 8 note, is going to be closer to the beat LFO because you're just syncing pretty much this LFO to the beat or the tempo of your track. All right. Now, of course, you can just like we have right here, you can offset it, or you can go, slower, or you can go faster. Right. At the same time, you have other, times right here. You can even go in kilohertz, which is like super fast. And all right. Simple enough. I'm going to go and do 8 note. Okay. So just like this one, you can turn this into a saw kind of a behavior, or you can go the other way and do kind of a ramp up. Now, if I double click it and put this one right in the center, by default it's there, but if you put it in the center, you're gonna getting kind of the same thing we got right here, right? Same thing. Now, of course, if you want to do more of a sine wave, you're just kind of adding a tiny curve to that, saw. And if you go to the middle, you're just getting a sine wave. And if you go to the middle, the center, you're getting a triangle, right? And just like the other one, they share pretty much this behavior. You can go right here and do that brackets kind of a waveform or LFO. All right. So they're very similar, and this one is kind of a simple version. This one can do whatever this one is doing, but you get a lot more control on pretty much everything. And you get the same options, and you can make it bipolar. But you do get some extra options, and I'm going to talk about this right now. Now, you get right here something that calls poly. So right now we are doing this motion, right? We're going to go and do something like maybe that. So we are playing a single note. So we are playing mono, single note. If I do poly, nothing is going to change because we are playing a single note. But this polysynth is a polyphonic instrument. If I play many notes, it's going to go and play them. I'm going to go to the example number 2 right now. Notice what I'm doing. I'm playing one note, and at one point I'm playing a second one, and then I add a third and I add a fourth. But, I'm sustaining all the notes. So I'm kind of at one point when I finish playing this, I'm playing 4 different notes, right? From 4 different keys. So if we do something like this, if I disable this and I go maybe in a quarter note, and maybe actually less than that, I'm going to go really slow. I'm going to go and play it. And I'm going to go maybe hertz because I can go slow. Okay, so let me start over. So when the clip starts, we're going to play one note. So this one will start from the beginning. So I'm going to go there. Or it's going to start from one point. Now notice that the whole synth, the whole, 4 different chords, 4 different keys, the whole chord we are doing is always following the same motion. It's not changing. They're all synced to the same movement. It's not restarting. We're going to talk about this in a minute because again, we have some options right here at the bottom. But the thing is that what if I, every single key we press can do its own thing. So this is what the poly means. So if I play a key, it's going to be, that key is going to be following a motion, which is, the modulation that we are doing. And if we play a new key before the cycle of the first key ends, the second key is going to start a new cycle. So you're going to start getting different vols on different places. And notice it sounds different. And this is because every key is doing a different thing with the filter. It's following its own LFO instruction. That's what poly means. Let me just do it not bipolar. So you can get really complex sounds by doing this, or maybe playing one key and you can offset it and just play different keys, and you can get very different sounds, especially when you want, a lot of effects. Okay, so notice that right here you get 4 different options. So free is the most common way of LFO. It's going to start and it will never stop. So it starts at one point and it will, not restart, the tiny ball. It's not just going to go to the beginning. just gonna go and follow this motion. Whatever happens, if I do play or stop, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna go and do its thing. It's just straightforward. That's why it's called free running. Does not reset. So then you have a note. So this means that the note or this movement will restart every time that we play a new key. So if I play the example, notice that on every new key is going back and restarting from the beginning. That's what the note means. Okay, so the next option is going to be the sync. Now it says resets to relative, and then you get this icon, which is face on play. Now I'm going to go right here and, we can enable and disable the polarity. Remember, we talk about this. We have a positive and a negative. So right now we are going positive. It goes from here and then up. All right. It's pretty simple. Now, of course, this waveform has a kind of a middle kind of a point. We don't need to go in here. We have a zero crossing point. So the sync, it means that whenever we start play, right here with this button, or I can do stop and play with the, with the keyboard, with the space bar. The starting point is not going to be the beginning. It's going to be the zero, like the middle of the waveform. And I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to go step right here, and I'm going to stop and restart the playback. And notice it's starting from right here. It's not starting from the center. It's not starting from the end. It's starting right here. So this one will sync to whatever you say right here. So maybe I don't want to start on the middle. I want to start higher, or I want to start lower. So as soon as you go up, notice it starts right here up. And if I do here, it's going to start there. If I go to a greater value, it's going to start upper and upper. Now, if you go really up, go right here, you're going to start lower. You're going to start right here. That depends on the waveform, of course. But this is what it means. It's going to sync to whatever you have right here when you do play. It doesn't matter if you play new notes. It just works when you do play. And then, of course, you get the rand, which is pretty much will randomize the starting of each, the starting of the waveform. And notice that on every new note, that it says randomizes on new notes, it's just going to be starting on a different place on new notes. And if we do poly, this is going to be very obvious, because they're all going to start kind of on different places, and it's just going to be a little bit weird. All right. So pretty simple, right? So we've just covered everything. All of this and all of this. Now, the only thing missing is this one. And this is a great feature. I'm gonna show you with the next example. So the next example is just going to be some chords. And for now, I'm just going to disable this and just kind of kill it. So I'm going to go and just show you we have some chords. So what I want to do a little bit of modulation. I don't want to saw, I just want to do maybe kind of a triangle-ish movement. Now, one of the most common modulations that we do the whole time with synthesizers is just modulate a little bit of the pitch so we can get, that kind of a vintagey vibe with the oscillators. So I'm going to go and say that every time that we play, we want to move the pitch. And we get that detuning. Of course, we can go a little bit faster. Now, of course, it sounds a little bit sickening, so we can lower the amount of how much we are doing. And now we get this kind of a vibrato. It's not very obvious. I'm going to make it more obvious. Okay. So what's the point of doing, this? So right here, you get these controls. So the thing is that the waveform will start doing, the LFO will start doing its job at one point. But you can delay it. Right now, if I go right here, I want something like this. But I don't want it the whole time. I just don't want it. Every time the chord starts, I play a new chord. I want to hear the chord without the LFO. And this is why you get these controls. You get a delay and you get a fade in. So the delay is going to say how much time we're going to wait before we apply the full, modulation. So I'm going to say we're going to wait for, 1 second. So we can count. So it's going to start the chord. We're going to wait for 1 second. And after 1 second, the modulation will kick in. Notice that when it starts, every chord, we don't have that detoning. It's just 1 second. And this is what this means. You're just gonna you're delaying that effect. Now, another thing, if I make it really aggressive, notice this is going from 0 to full. And it sounds a little bit weird. It would be cool if we can kind of slowly do this LFO. So this is the control. This is the ramp. We are just pretty much saying that we're gonna kind of fade that motion in. Now, of course, I'm doing too much. Notice that now it's not that aggressive. It's just kind of slowly ramping up to whatever we have right here. If I do slower and I go right here, it's going to be a bit more obvious. Maybe not, because we are playing short chords. Very aggressive, ramping up. Right? It's a little bit smoother. So these are the controls on some synthesizers. This, on a Juno, for example, this is one of the controls that you kind of get, which is kind of really cool. So of course, the main point of using the LFOs, and I'm sorry that this is, the video is a bit long, but I'm just taking my time. I'm assuming that if you're here and you're watching this, you're kind of starting with Bitwig and you just wanted to learn the controls. So if I go super fast and make it in 5 minutes, maybe you're going to get a little bit confused. So I'm just taking my time. So of course, the main idea of using LFOs need to be musical. Well, on my opinion. So we can just go and start bringing LFOs and being a bit creative. So I'm going to bring the beat LFO, right? Just a beat LFO. So what I want to do, I just want to do a little bit of motion right here. I'm going to do it to the cutoff, and I'm going to go and do it to the resonance. And right now we have an ARP right here. So we are, kind of syncing there. And I'm going to do a more kind of something like that. We can even go faster if we wanted to, but for now, I'm just going to leave it that way. Oh, of course, I need to loop it. All right, let's start again. Now, if I disable this, even though we did just a tiny bit, you can notice the difference. It's going darker, but we don't have movement. And the main idea of LFOs, at the same time, just to modulate things, is just to get movement. Modulation, that's the idea. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that it's just because you're bringing the beat LFO, you can just not bring another LFO and do something else. So I'm going to go and bring another LFO and do, in this case, this one, the LFO. So this one, I'm going to go really fast. And what I want to do, maybe I'm going to go 16, I'm going to go 30 seconds. Yeah, 16 is fine. And I'm going to go and just... Again, we want to do something else to get a different sound from something dull, to get some kind of a movement. So maybe this is just kind of too harsh. So what I can do, I can go right here, and I can use this LFO to modulate this one. And now we get a much more kind of a controlled motion. So now we have one LFO controlling something, and this LFO controlling a different LFO. And you could go crazy right here. You can just bring whatever you want and just try different things. That's the idea with Bitwig, exploration and experimentation. So maybe I'm gonna bring just the LFO. And I'm gonna create kind of something like that, and I'm gonna go a bit faster, and I'm not gonna sync it. And maybe on this one we can do a little bit of movement between the oscillators, maybe a little bit of drive, why not? And a little bit of that. We can just, we are doing a lot of things, a lot of movement. Right. So at the end of the day, the sky's the limit. You need to do some exploration, some experimentation, and use the LFOs. Now you know what they all can do. So hopefully you like this, you learned something new today, and remember to like and subscribe, and to check Patreon, of course, and see you on the next one.